All right, so we're looking at the data that we're downloading for today, census.xlsm, and we're trying to make some sense of this. What is it? Tell me something about this data. Go ahead.
Second tab, data dictionary.
Ah, we've got a tab here called Data Dictionary. Okay, so what is this? What is this going to do for us?
Tell us what the code is for.
The code. When you say the code, what do you mean?
VBA, just like the column headers.
Ah, okay. Right. So maybe if we look over here at M looks interesting because it says sex in it. So if we look at M, we might be able to come down and find how far, let's see, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. This the one? Yeah, sex 255208. So resident population, total females percent, July 1st estimate. Okay, so if I come over here to column M, so what do I think this is? Yeah, in fact, we look at this and we see, wow, these are all pretty close to 50%, so that kind of makes sense. So this is like the percentage of something that are female. So there's a little slightly more female than male here, substantially less female than male here. But in what? What does it mean? Anything else? So good, we're making some good progress here. You guys are like bright. I mean, even just to get admitted at BYU, you got to be bright. I bet you can figure something out here. So it's giving us something. We got lots of measurements about what percentage of the population is female. What else can you tell me? Yeah.
Age column and also population column.
Ah, so we've got lots of different variables. So something about age, we can go look in the data dictionary. We can find out just exactly what that is. Some stuff about population. How'd you get to population? Did you see it here or did you? Oh yeah, pop right here. There's population and maybe some others. And we could go see kind of what all of these are. So I think we've got a good feeling for kind of what these column headers are. And we could kind of go back and look, what are these different ones? But how about the rows? Yeah.
Get the county names.
Okay, so over here in county names is where we can see what those numbers are up here at the top. So we see 0 means the United States, 1,000 means Alabama, and then we've got individual counties here. So that's probably just a lookup over here to what we see on this data set. Yeah, 0. So this is going to be like population. This is going to be numbers for all of the United States of America. And that makes sense because we look at it and it's like so much larger than any of the rest of the numbers. And then here's all of Alabama, and then we get to individual counties. Okay, so we've got a pretty good handle on the data now. So this is census data. So this is just aggregated data from probably the 2000 census. Maybe I should update this and get the more recent census, 2020 census or something. But anyway, it's data, and this is data that's exactly the way that I downloaded it from the United States Census. You can go, census.gov and download data in all sorts of different formats. I've only done one thing that's different to this data, and you'll see why as we work with this a little bit later. But on the county names, I added column D, which just combines the county and the state into one field. But other than that, this file is exactly as downloaded. Now, when I look at this data set and I'm thinking, what would you say? Is this like an easy data set to work with, or is this kind of a difficult data set to work with? At least it's organized, but if I'm trying to figure out something about Utah County, or if I was going to try to find something out about my very favorite county, Gov County, Kansas, which is this is actually the county I was named after. I mean, I wasn't named after the county. My great grandfather was named after the county. It's been in the family ever since then. So, but if I wanted to find out something about Gov County and maybe compare Gov County to Utah County, this would be, so I got to go, what do I got to do? I got to find that number. What's that number? I don't know. Where is it? County names 20063. I can come back here. 20063. Oops. Oh, it's because I'm searching in just a little range. Find next. Okay, so here's Gov County, Kansas. Oh, but now I've lost, I don't know what this, I know what M is. M is, looks like there's slightly more women than men in Gov County, Kansas. But I have to kind of come back here and come back to my data dictionary to find out, what's the next column before that and so forth. So if I actually want to kind of look at this and make some sense out of it, like all the information that makes sense to the human, like the name of the county and the name of the variables, those are spread out along the workbook. What I'd like to do today in our example is to build a tool here that would allow us to pretty easily compare two or more counties to each other. I want to compare Utah County with Salt Lake County with Davis County and across all of these dimensions. I'd like to make that a tool that can do that pretty easily. Now, what we're really focusing on today is looking at different ways to be able to refer to and identify ranges. We're really looking at working with ranges, but we're going to do it kind of in the context of this example. So let's go ahead and start off by let's just copy this data dictionary. In fact, what I want to do is I'm going to take just the first two columns of the data dictionary and let's just put them onto a new sheet. Let's make a new sheet. I'm going to call this sheet compare. And I'm going to paste in, oops, I guess I got to go back and copy that again. And I'm going to paste in then those labels. So, and this looks, actually, I think I don't even really care about the data item. I'm going to just column B is the only one I want here. And I guess the idea is what I'm after here is I'd like to be able to say, somehow pick a county and put the values in for the county next to the labels so that when I look at it, I can see, oh, this is the resident population 65 years and older. And then I'd like to be able to put Utah County next to Davis County, next to Salt Lake County, next to Gov County. I want to see how Gov County stacks up to everybody else. And I'd like to facilitate, make that happen, pretty easily. So I don't think I need this. What I have here in A1 item description, I don't need that because I've just got the labels here. I think we'll go ahead and just leave them there starting in row 3. Okay. So now I've got a sheet now that I can kind of work on, that I can kind of bring data in and out of to be able to look at just the part I'm interested in. Now I think I need some way to be able to have the user choose which county they want to work with. What are some ways that we could ask the user to tell us the county that they want to work with? What's the county they want to bring in? Go ahead. Oh, okay. So we could have like what's it called? Input box. We could just open an input box, type in the county name. That would work. That's pretty good. What's the problem with having the user type the county name in? Yeah, if they either spell or type as poorly as I do, that'll be difficult data to work with. But we could do something that's like type it in, and if it didn't exist, we could say sorry, try again, sorry, try again, sorry, try again. But it's probably a better approach to that would definitely work. But how could we make it a little more user friendly? Any thoughts? So just kind of what you know about Excel. What could we do with Excel? Yeah. So we can make a drop-down list. You pick the one that you want here. So do you know there's at least a couple of different ways that we can make a drop-down list in Excel? Anyone know a way that we could make a drop-down list? Yep. So data validation is kind of built in for that. Yeah, let me show, and let's go ahead and use that one, but I do want to show you the other one as well. So let me just kind of take a peek over here. I'll come to developer, and here under insert, there's a drop-down list that we could put in right here. It configures a little bit differently than data validation, but I'm guessing you're probably a little more familiar with data validation. And so let's just do data validation. So I'm going to come here and select A1, and I want to be able to make a drop-down list right here. I'll just come to the data tab and I'll choose data validation and allow any value. No, don't allow any old value in there. Let's choose a value from a list. So I'm on the data tab. I chose this data validation button here. And now I'm going to specify only values allowed to go in A are ones that come from a specific list. And that list is going to be in our county names sheet. So I'll just, let's see, source, come to county names, and we'll just select, and that's the whole reason I got column D here. That's all combined. So I'll just select that range. We'll say, okay. And now we've got a drop-down list. Make it so that when we choose that, and it gives us that It chooses a county. Now the user can go pick a county and it's limited to the ones that are valid counties, and they can't. Can you even start typing here? Will it like help you if you start typing? That's not very good. Be better if it would kind of help us at it, but at least we can pick it off the list. All right. Anyone need help getting that part set up? I went through that kind of quickly because I kind of assumed you had some experience with data validation, but we can take another minute or so if someone needs a hand getting that set up. Or if your neighbor is struggling a little bit, you can point it out to them. That would be great. All right. So let's go ahead, and now that we've got a county selected, let's see what we have to do to bring in the information about that county. So I'm open up my Visual Basic editor with Alt F11. I'll leave my spreadsheet poking out there from behind so I can see it. Oh, I don't even have a module in here yet. So let's go ahead and insert a module. We'll choose Insert Module. Got module 1 here. And let's just create a sub procedure called Show One County. All right, now I'm going to be working with several different sheets and pulling data off of one sheet and bringing it over here. So let's go ahead and get ourselves an object variable that I can use to conveniently refer to my compare sheet. So why don't we just dim compare as a worksheet. And then let's go ahead and bind compare onto that sheet. So set compare equal to, out of all the worksheets, the one named compare. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, C-O-M. Is that the only place I spelled it wrong? No, I spelled it wrong over here as well. As I mentioned, you know, if you type or spell as poorly as me, C-O-M-P-A-R-E, C-O-M-P-A-R-E. Oh, compare period. Okay, other comments? All right, so let's start off by bringing in, I mean, we got to get kind of two pieces of information. We're going to bring in the state and the county here, and then we'll bring in all the data that corresponds to that state and county from our data set worksheet. So any thoughts about how we're going to get the state and county? Well, I guess we've got the state and county here, and that would work okay for one that's actually a state and a county. But I think for the one that's all of the United States, I just want to put like United States here, or I think what I really want to do is just bring in from what's on this sheet. I want to put this in row 1 and then whatever's here in row 2. So if it's United States, it'll say United States in row 1, nothing in row 2, Alabama in row 1, nothing. But if it's down here to Baldwin County, it'll say, I guess I want the state to go first. So we want to say Alabama and then Baldwin, Alabama and then Barber and so forth. So how are we going to get to, find the right row here based on whatever information we get from, from being selected here? We could do a VLOOKUP. And we could actually just code in here, like we could have our code write a formula in here that does a VLOOKUP. Generally speaking, if I'm gonna write that in with VBA, it's probably just as good or maybe better to have VBA do the lookup and just put a value there. How many of you have ever worked with a workbook that had so many formulas in it that like if you like made a change to one formula, it would take, say maybe more than 30 seconds for it to recalculate to be ready to do something else. Okay, so maybe 1 out of 20 of the folks that are here. So a lot of you don't have that experience yet, but for those of you that have the experience, is that a fun worksheet to work with or not so fun? Yeah, it's terrible. It's just a terrible thing to work with. So even though this wouldn't, we're only talking about putting 4 or 5 in here. And so having those formulas wouldn't even make a noticeable difference in the calculation speed. But since we're learning about VBA, let's just go ahead and see how to do that lookup directly with VBA. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to declare, and we'll get, and we've seen this because we've recorded ourselves doing a find before, but we just kind of let it write the code and we just worked with it. Today, I want to spend a little time talking about that searching code. So let's do this. Let me declare a variable called found cell. And we'll make that as a range. Now I'm going to set found cell equal to, and now I want to look. Now, since these values are coming from column D on my county names sheet, I want to just look right back there. I've got to find it here. And that value has to be there because that's the only thing that's allowed to go in that cell is a value from here. So let me look at, I want to do a search here on county names. I don't have to activate that sheet to be able to search for it. I can just tell it to go look on that sheet. So how is our county names sheet named? So it's not a very good name. It's like, where is it? County names, compare. Oh, right top one. Oh, it is named, good. So I named it counties. So this is the name that's on the sheet tab, but this is the name that's available through code. And you can change that right here. Like if you wanted to change that, you just select this, you've got your properties window open. F4 brings that up if it's not showing for you, or like view properties window over here. And I could change the code name right here. I could change it to something else. And then I could access that through VBA with that directly by that name. Sometimes you've got to, after you've made that change, you've got to close Excel and open it up, or close the workbook and open it again before it reads it. And so I'm not going to fiddle with that here, but it's already named, so we'll use that name. So I'm going to look on the worksheet named counties, right? And you see that I could do that one, or I could refer to it this way. County names. Okay, so whether I use this way to refer to the worksheet or this way, it's getting to the same worksheet. Show me how comfortable you are with that statement on 0 to 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Excellent. Okay, good. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly the reason, is that here, for this to break, someone's got to come in here and actually rename it in VBA. Whereas if you've got someone who's using this worksheet says, you know what, I want a space between county and names. Who made this without a space? I want to put a space in there. And if I was using this way to do it, if they changed the sheet name, this would break. Yep. So absolutely, that's one of the great reasons to use the code name. It's actually referred to as the code name. Makes me think it's a secret agent or something. It's got a code name. That's the code name. Okay. So counties, and then I'm going to refer to a particular range on this. And here's one way that I can refer to like a whole column. Columns, and then which column number I'm after. So column number 4 is talking about that range, that is the whole range of column 4 on that worksheet. So from that worksheet to that range, now I'm going to call the find method. The first argument for find is what I'm looking for. And what I want to find is whatever is selected in the first cell in range A1 of my sheet called data. So is it called data? Yeah, it's just that the code name is data. Oh, no, it's not. It's called compare. And I made a sheet. I made a variable for it here. So another way to refer to a sheet, it's my compare sheet dot cells 1. So let's look at this. Another way to refer to a particular range. Normally, when we use the cells method to identify a particular range, we're going to give it two arguments, a row and a column. But if I only give it one argument, it's just going to start at the upper left-hand corner and it's going to count right across that whole first row. So it'll go up to like 16,000 on the first row. And then the next one starts on row A2 or cell A2 and just keeps counting up from there. So cells 1 is the first cell on the worksheet. If I wanted B1, it would be cells 2. Or I could provide 2, and we'll see an example here using 2 indices as well. And I'm after the value of that. And then I've got some arguments that are optional here, and so I don't need to specify all the arguments. I'm going to skip the next 2 arguments and plug in, then say I want a complete match on this. So I'll put in XL whole. And again, you could record yourself doing this and see the whole thing, but this is going to give us a search. All right, now I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Ooh, set found cell equal to. So I see I've got something. Set. There we go. There we go. Thank you. All right, we're going to a whole day. We're going to talk about different tricks and tools for debugging, but let me just show you how to get your code to stop and go into break mode, like by putting a statement in here. And I'm just going to put the keyword in here, stop. When I say stop, that's a statement that says pause the execution of the code right here, leave the procedure loaded into memory, all the variables still defined, and that just gives us a chance to kind of poke around and see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and run this code. It is run to there. It's done all these steps, and now it's waiting for me right here. So now I can come up here and say, you know what? I want to see found cell's address. And so it found that on D1. And that's because I guess it must have had United States selected. Come back here to compare. Oh, yeah. Let me choose something a little more interesting, something down here. Sweetwater, Wyoming. Anyone from Wyoming here? Is Sweetwater a county you've heard of? No, it's probably a pretty small place. Anyway, it's out there. We're going to find out a little bit about it here, I guess. Okay, interestingly, now that I've stopped that, I can actually take this yellow arrow and I can drag it back up to start going again. I'm going to just come right back to there and then hit play again, and it will run that. And now that should have done a find somewhere else. So it found now also column D, but row number 3,192, way down. So now I have attached the found cell onto whichever cell this finds. So now I've got kind of a convenient way to refer to that cell. By the way, if it fails, let's do this. I'm going to show you this example, but I don't want you to do it along with me. Let me just change this to be a code that it won't find. I'm going to bring this back, but it's not going to find that one. If I try to ask for the address of that cell, what do you think found cell is referring to at this point? Which cell is it pointing at? It's not pointing to any cell at all. If I try to ask for the address of that, it's going to say, I just don't know what you're talking about. It says the object variable is not set. The found cell is an object variable and it's not set. So in fact, if I hover over this, you might see that it says it equals nothing. Nothing is a keyword that every time I make a brand new object variable has to be attached onto something. And when I make a new object variable, and before I attach it onto its intended object, it's actually bound onto an object called nothing. It's kind of a strange thing. There's an object called nothing. Nothing is something. It's actually an object. And so I can actually check with that. I'm just kind of giving this as an example for general search, even though it won't be important for us here. I'm going to say if found cell is nothing, then that means it didn't find it. Maybe I'll just put up a message box, MSGBOX, MSGBOX, county not found. And then get me out of here. So if I were to run that now, it would tell me, hey, county's not found. We'll say, okay, and it's done. It never hit the stop because the exit sub yanked me right out of the sub procedure altogether. So this is kind of like a general pattern when you're searching for cells and you're not sure you're going to find the value. So set a variable, an object variable to it, and then check to see if it's nothing. If it's nothing, then it didn't get attached to it. Now, I don't think we're ever going to hit this code because we've got data validation set up so it can only pick a value that it's got to find in column 4. But I wanted to give you that pattern because it's a pretty common pattern for when you're searching for cells. All right. Now, let's just see. So let's say we found this. We found some county down here. And what we want to do is we want to pick up these two. So why don't we just keep track of where our county row is, what row we found that county on. We'll declare another variable. I'll call it county row as a long integer. Now, I only have 3,000 some odd counties here, so I could probably get by with fewer counties. I mean, so how big of a number can a long integer take? Plus or minus 2 billion. That's way more than I need. Could I get by with integer? Plus or minus 32,000? Yeah, I only got like 3,000 and some odd. But as a general rule, anytime I'm referring to a row, I want to use a data type that will work for any row. And it's just because if you ever find yourself kind of on the cusp, you're going, oh, I've only got 30,000 of these values, so I could use integer. I could save myself 2 bytes of RAM by using integer. And then the data gets updated and all of a sudden you've got 40 values and your code's going to break. I think it's just safer. Anytime you're saying I'm getting a row number, use a variable that could handle any row number there. And I'm going to use long. Okay. So I'm going to say my county row is equal to found cell dot row. So I'm reading the row off of the object that we found. By the way, why do I say set here and not set here for this variable? We talked about it like a couple of weeks ago. It wouldn't surprise me if you're going, I have no idea. Yeah, go ahead. Exactly right. When I'm going to bind an object variable onto an object, I use the keyword set. There's a real reason for that we could explain, but it's probably not worth the time it would take to explain. It's just something that you go, okay, it's an object variable. I've got to use the keyword set to attach it on. Okay. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring in those values. I'm trying to bring in whatever's in column C, and I want to put that right here in B1. So another way to see a range is one you're probably already familiar with. I'm going to say my compare sheet dot range B1. So just can plug in just a reference to a cell. I'm going to set the value of that equal to my counties sheet dot cells row number, county row, column number 3. So we're reading the value from here. One of the things that's a little bit tricky when you're first learning VBA is you see this equality sign and you almost think this is like a statement of equality, but it's not. This is an assignment statement. It says take whatever is on the right-hand side of it and put it in what's on the left-hand side of it. So we're reading off of this expression and we're plugging it into this expression. So we're putting a new value into to the value property of B1. I want to do the same thing for B2, but I want to show you a different way to refer to B2. This one kind of melts my mind that this even works. I can put square brackets and put B2 in there without being inside of quotes. That's another legal way to refer to a range. That one really does make my head hurt. Now, instead of putting a column number here where I'm using the cells method to refer to a particular cell, I can actually put a letter in here. So I can put B. So another variation on how I can refer to a cell. So that should, now if I run this code, it should bring, I've got Sweetwater here selected. It should bring in here and put Wyoming there and Sweetwater right there. And looks like it did. So it took that value, looked it up on the sheet, brought those values over. Whew. Okay. Now, at least we've got like the name listed there. And you might think, well, why do you have to list it there? Because it's listed right here. And the answer is, this is where I'm just going to pick the next one. By the time we're done today, we'll be able to pick, 3 or 4 of these, and we want them all to lay in the data all the way across you. Okay. What's our next step in making this thing useful? I'll stop my code here. Probably bringing that data in. If you're going to bring this data in, how would you go about getting it? Like if you had to go do this by hand, what would you do? Go ahead.
And then copy over all of that information. You have to change it from being in a row to a column.
Yeah, so you're going to do a copy, paste, transpose. You're going to find the right row, copy the data in that row, and then do a paste transpose. I like it. So why don't we go ahead and do the same thing? In fact, it's pretty easy code to write. I'm never sure exactly how to write it. So I'm just going to record myself doing it. So and you can feel free to record along with me or not. I'm going to select this whole block of data, just Control Shift right arrow did that. And then I'm just going to record myself doing a copy, paste, transpose, just to generate the code. So come to my developer, turn on my macro recorder. Macro 1's a great name. I'm going to copy. I'm going to come back to compare, and then I'm going to paste, transpose, and stop recording. So that made a new module, module 2. And there it is. It's called paste special. So it's paste special with transpose true. Like the rest of this stuff, paste all the rest of these we don't really need. But that's what I was after. Paste special with transpose true. So let's go ahead and first do the copy, and then we'll do the paste. I can find my code and go back to module 1. So I need to refer to the range that I'm after. Now, what the suggestion was is do a lookup based on the county code. We could do that, but there's a little shortcut here for us, because when I look at my county names, these county names are in the same order that they are in my data sheet. United States, Alabama. So if we look at them, it's 0, 1000, and 13579. So I'll come back here, 0, 1000, and then 13579. They're in the same order. So if I know the row that I found the county name on, I'm only one off over here because my county name doesn't have headers, this one does. So just a little offset of one row should handle that for me. So let's just go ahead and build a reference to that range. So in fact, why don't I go ahead and make a range variable for that? We'll do this in a couple of steps. I'm just going to call this RNG as a range object. And we might end up using this, kind of reusing this variable to point at a few different ranges. Okay, so maybe I'll put a comment for myself. Maybe I'll do the comment here. So this is find the county. This is bring in the county and state name. And then this is bring in the data. So set RNG equal to, okay, now I know it's on my sheet called data. So I've got a code name right over here. That's the data sheet. So data dot, and now I need a multi-cell range. We saw this quickly before, but let's look at it again. So there is just a general range method. So it's not attached to any worksheet, it's just range by itself. And normally, if I come in here, I can put in A1, how many A1s do I have on this workbook? Oh no, there's one on every single sheet. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 cells A1 in this workbook. Which one's it going to talk about? Which one is it going to pick? Out of all those 8, which one will it pick? Whichever one's on the active sheet. I didn't tell it which one. So it just assumes, oh, you must mean, just as if you'd said active sheet.range A1. But I can put in 2 arguments. Let me do this. Let me come in here and put 2 arguments in B17. And that's going to identify a range, a cell that goes all the way across both of those. So it's like upper left-hand corner to bottom right-hand corner. So I can use that, giving it 2 arguments, and I can create a multi-cell range. But this doesn't have to be a string. This could be any way that I refer to a cell. So I can come in here and say, I could have another reference in here, cells, and then whatever row I'm talking about. The row I'm talking about is, well, let me just put one in here. Row number 100, column number 1, starting in column number 1. And on my data set, and what's my last column? It's over here, CE. Oof, okay, CE. So, and it's going to end at cells, row number 100, column number CE. I had a roommate when I was in college named Carlton Eden, and that's his, or Carlton England. Anyway, that's his initials. Right, so that gets me to that one as well. But I can also, the important thing to realize here is that now that I'm identifying a particular cell here, I could tell which out of all the worksheets I'm talking about. And so I've got the one here named data. So now it doesn't matter what sheet I'm not telling it any sheet for the range to operate on. It's saying, hey, this is going to be a range that starts at this particular cell and ends at this particular cell. Now, how are we going to go out figuring out what CE is? In fact, why don't I go ahead and get this integrated here? Kind of bring that example down and put it into our code. So we're going to set my range object equal to this range. It's going to start at, which row do I want to start at? County row gives me the row that I found the county name on. So I'll say county row +1. Why +1? Because in my county names, there's no header. So when it finds United States, it's on row 0. But in my data set, because of the header, it's going to find United States, it'll find United States on row 1, and then here it'll be on row 2. So this is offsetting us to the row that we need. In fact, I think I'm probably done. You know what? I'm done reading the data off of my counties sheet. So let me just adjust what county row is looking at. So county row is equal to what it used to be +1. So now whenever I refer to county row, it's going to be the county row thinking of it for the data. This can be a statement that looks a little bit confusing when you first start, because if you're a mathematician, you would look at that statement and you say that obviously has to be false. But it's not a statement of equality, right? It is an assignment. It says, I'm putting a new value into the variable county row. What is it going to be? The current value that's there +1. So we're just making that value go up by 1. Okay, so now I'm going to plug county row here for 100. And I don't want the address. I just want to bind on to that range. But what I'm worried about is this CE. Why am I worried about CE here? Why not just leave that hard coded in my code? Yeah, you know what? You know what? The next time I get the data, it's time to update this data. I mean, we've had 2 censuses have happened since I pulled this data down. And so we're probably gonna get some new data. What do you think? Did they keep track of all the same stuff in the 2020 census that they did in the 2000 census? Probably not. There might be more or there might be less, but I'd like to bring in like just the right ones. So let's look at how we can get to the right, how we can just ask it, where does the data end? Any thoughts on how you might do that? If you're just trying to figure out where does the data end, just in Excel, how would you do it? Oh yeah, so you're saying, hey, just be right over here and hit like control right arrow. And that will work really well on this data set because this data set does not have any blank cells. But if I was on like a row and there was a blank cell here, control right arrow would hit that end row. But I'm pretty sure there's not going to be any blanks on the first row. So let's just do that to calculate where our data ends. Let's go make a variable called last column. Come back up here, we'll make another one here. We'll call it last call. And whoops, dim. And dim last call as, I'll do this as an integer. There's 16,000 columns on a worksheet and integer can go to 32, so I think we'll be okay. Thanks, I saw it just before you. All right, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll figure that one out right here. So let me just say that last call is equal to data dot, another way to get to, yeah, here's another way to refer to the first cell. I mean, I'm just kind of showing you some different ways to do it. Not like this is the way you would do it, for this particular part, but let's do this. Let's say out of all my rows, I want the first row. So this is a range. This part right here is a reference to that whole first range, that whole first row, like 16,000 cells in this row. And from here, I'll take out of all the cells on that, I want just the first one. So that will be the first cell on that particular row. It happens that it's row number 1, but it could be any row. So that's a reference to cell A1. And from there, I'm going to say end. There's a little method called end. And in parentheses, I'm going to put XL TO right. XL2 right. If you recorded yourself doing that control right arrow, this is exactly what it would record. So end, and this is a constant, right? So this is a predefined value. I can ask what that is. It's going to be some numeric value. And that's how Excel internally says, oh, when you say negative 4161 here, you mean to move to the right. You can move to the left, to the right, up or down, and those are different values you can plug in there. That's going to refer to that very last cell of contiguous data. And what I want to do is ask for the column of that cell. And so now that I've got that last column in a variable, I can plug that in here. And we now know how wide our data is, and we can use that. Questions?
So you're still somehow referring to that app. Right, one of the
Oh, yeah, no, I think I do want to put that in, data dot. Yeah, without telling it which sheet I'm on, it would have assumed the active sheet. And I want to make this code so that it doesn't, because what sheet is going to be active when this code runs? This is the sheet that's going to be active. So we're picking it here and we want to refer to it. Questions? Other questions? Thank you. Yeah.
What's the difference between XL2 right versus XL right?
So the difference between XL2 right and XL right, well, the difference is 9. It's negative 9 is the difference is 9. But yeah, so in this context, what's the difference? And the answer is apparently they were already using XL right to mean something. Maybe it's for alignment, maybe it's for something else, I don't know. So when they got around to making the constants that would work with XL, like with end, they said, oh, we got to name it something different. And so they called it XL2 right. Seems like they could have made negative 4152 kind of also work for end. And I'm not sure, like, it seems like end must have been written first and you're going to use this value. I don't know. Because XL2 right, XL2 left, it's XL up and XL down is what you would use to plug in there. Okay. Let me just give you some intuition as to why this is called end. Back before they invented the control key, I mean, the control key was a great advance in human-computer interaction. Before the control key was invented, when we're working on a spreadsheet and we want to move like all the way to the right, it was a 2-keystroke experience. I'm going to do one finger at a time. You ready? I'm going to strike the end key on my keyboard. It didn't do anything, apparently. But if you look down here, I'm now in end mode, which means now with one finger, if I hit the right key, it's going to do that same thing. So this 2-keystroke sequence, end right arrow, does the same thing that you learned to do with control right arrow. And that's the reason that this thing is named end. It's because that's the old school way of moving to the end of a contiguous block of data. Okay, at this point, I've got a range object bound on to the range that I want to work with. I think I'm going to run it to there and see what I got. Let me just take a look and see what rng.address is. Yeah, from column A to C3, and I guess our Sweetwater County is on row 3193. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to do a copy, and then I want to do the paste special. So I've got, let me just say rng.copy. There's a copy method, and that's just going to copy that, the contents of that range. And now I want to paste it. Where do I want to paste it? I want to do that paste transpose. Oh yeah, I think I can probably just do the paste transpose. I don't have to tell it the whole column. I think I can do a paste transpose just in the first cell. So let me go ahead and I'm going to like select that cell and do the paste transpose. I'm going to be on this sheet when this runs. So let me just say cells, let's see. Yeah, I'll just do cells here. And that's going to be row number 3, column B. Cells 3B dot paste special. I can't spell. Let's go back here, just copy it. Paste special. Oh, and transpose true is the only thing I need. I'm just going to copy all of that, and then we'll get rid of what we don't need from it. So paste special and then transpose true. Now, this is a little bit, this syntax bears a little bit of discussion. So I am calling paste special here. It is a method. It's something that a range knows how to do. I can say to a range paste special. And it's like, great, I look at the clipboard and that range will go and pull the data off. And then there's lots of different ways I can paste special. I could just paste the formats. I could paste just the values. I could have you ever done this where you've got a vector of data, you've got something else copied, and you can do an addition paste where you paste on it instead of replacing it, it adds the numbers on the clipboard into the corresponding values that are there. I was amazed when I first saw that. I couldn't imagine why I would ever want to do that, but you could do it. It's all part of what paste special does. And so it has a list of arguments as long as your arm here that you could plug in. And we could put them in an order, the way that we're doing up here for cells. We're just putting them in an order. Or I could say, look, I don't care about any of these except the argument for transpose. And so by paying transpose colon equals, what I'm saying is pass the value true to the transpose parameter for this method. I could get the same thing if I knew the order that transpose happened, and we could see it right here. I get the same thing by saying, you know what, skip the first one, skip the second one, skip the third one, and then put the fourth one in. It's like comma, comma, comma. True would do the same thing. But this makes the code much more readable because when I look at it, I go, oh yeah, you're doing a transpose. I get it, you're doing a transpose. So now I should be able to run that. And now So let me just run that. Let's make sure it works. Let me clear this out. I'm on that sheet and I'll run it. And brought the data back in. So that looks great. Since I now am, this is the first time that I've specifically said this sheet has to be active. So let me make sure that this sheet is the active sheet when we are running. So right after here, I've set compare to that worksheet. Let me make sure that's the active sheet. Compare dot activate. So that when I say cells, paste, transpose, I need to, oh no, I don't have to activate it. I was thinking I had to paste it to the sheet, but I don't, I paste it to the cell. So let me just go ahead and put in here, let me specify it here, compare. If I can make my code so that it's not sensitive to which sheet is active when it runs, the code will be more robust, so I prefer that. Okay. To really make it that far so fast? Oh, we need to make this now so that it automatically, I'd like to have that automatically bring the data in when I change this value. Like as soon as we change that value, boom, I want it to bring the data in. I don't want to have to go run the code, like press Control-Shift-D or something. So this brings up something really interesting. And it's actually something you'll get really familiar with when we start working with forms, but I'm going to introduce it to you right now. Normally, when we want code to run, so far, we said, you've got to tell me to run the code. And you could tell me to run the code by like clicking a button. We could put a button on the sheet. When you click the button, it runs the code. We could tell you to run the code by just going up to the list of macros and saying, run this macro. Or you could tell it to run the code by going into your Visual Basic environment and pressing the play, selecting it and pressing the play button. Now, I would like this code to run automatically in response to the user doing something on this worksheet. Like when the value of range A1 changes on my compare sheet, that's what's going to trigger the code. This is really great. It's like a big step forward in what we can do with VBA. Because we can now just make things, the user does something along and then bingo, we can make code execute. And it's really pretty easy to do, but it's a little bit of a step to get there. So I'm going to come back to my Visual Basic editor. And we see the two modules that we have here. These modules are called general modules. These are just modules where I put code. But if I look up here to my Microsoft Excel objects, you're looking at all of these and you think, wow, these are all worksheets here. And yeah, that's a reference to the worksheet. Let me come to my compare worksheet. And if I double click this, it is going to open a module that's a part of that worksheet. Okay, so here's the module I've been working on. And by double clicking compare, it's saying, oh, here is the module that's built into compare. Now, we haven't paid attention to these drop-down boxes before. And so I can put general statements in my compare module as well, but let me choose a worksheet object. So now it says, oh, you must want this to execute anytime the user changes what is selected. That's crazy. Watch this. I'm going to delete this, so don't feel like you got to copy this from around. Debug.print now. And that'll be the time, and let me also do target dot address. Now, each time I change, this is going to now execute every time the worksheet, and remember we're in the code for sheet 1. That's my compare worksheet. Every time the selection changes, that code's going to execute. Like boom, I need to make this smaller so you can see it happen. Every time, I lied, compare, that should trigger that code when I change it. I wonder if I don't have like macros enabled or something. No, because I've been running code. What's going on here? Let's compare. That is sheet 1. That's sheet 1. Selection change.
I had similar issues. You can see your record macro box is grayed out. I just closed the workbook and then.
The record, so up here?
Yeah, select area off.
Interesting. And stop. Yeah, so I'm not sure why that wasn't working for me. I didn't have to close and reopen, but it seems like it's working okay now. I'm not quite sure what was different here. But like every time I make a change to the selection, it's executing that code. I don't really want this to execute because someone changed the selection. I want to do one where they, whoops, come back to worksheet, and instead of selection change, I want change, actually change. So now every time a cell gets changed, the value of a cell gets changed, it's going to cause this code to execute. So, and it's going to tell me which cell is being changed. So I'm going to say if, again, we got a whole day, I think maybe even Wednesday, where we talk about conditional branching. But for now, let's just do this kind of quickly. If target address equals $1, it's going to have a $sign in it. So $A, $1. Then we want to call our procedure over here. What was this called? Show one county. So this will only get triggered on sheet 1 on my compare sheet. But if what gets changed is A1, then we're calling our show one county. So now if I choose a different county, it should bring in the data for that county. And I better take off, stop. Okay, I need to stop my code because that won't trigger when I'm in break mode. Uh-oh. It's because I'm selecting that, doing the paste special. Maybe if I click out, really fast, it'll change the way it operates. All right, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I got to think about how to do this, how to trigger this from a paste special. That's causing to change.
Is it because in whatever tab on the compare worksheet code, I think you have it as the selection chain instead of this change?
Oh, I don't think so, but let's take a look. Oh yeah, excellent. I put it in the wrong one. It should be change. You get a gold star for the day if that fixes this. Gold stars, as I might have mentioned before, have no effect on your grade, but you tell your mom you got a gold star. Ah, that's much better. There we go. So yeah, so now I can come and select the county and it plugs it in there. Now that feels pretty good, except, I don't, and in fact, this is already better. If I want to look at Georgia, I can bring the labels in, I can bring in Dodge County, Georgia, and I can kind of look at the data right there. But of course, what I'm really after is the ability to compare. Whew. So how am I going to have to change my code to make it so I can compare multiple counties? What do I have to do instead of bringing all this stuff into column B? What do I got to change? Here's where I'm bringing it, saying, I think finding the county is going to be the same. So what do I got to do here? Don't tell me in terms of VBA. Tell me in English, what do I have to do? Big picture here. Go ahead.
You have 2 tabs, so you open up 2 tabs there, right? You're like, oh, for this county and that county, and then
Okay, that's an interesting question. So you're saying bring up 2 different tabs. Can I make 2? Now, if you guys all know how to do this and I've never done this, I'll feel kind of bad. But can I put 2 tabs side by side in Excel? Like 2 worksheets side by side? I can imagine that being something that you could do, but I've never seen how to do it. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to get the data right here on this worksheet, because ultimately, and we'll do this when we start talking about charts, we're going to use this same example to say, I want to like automatically chart data, like take this data that's right here and build a chart out of it. So I'd like it to be kind of in a contiguous range. So like the first thing you might think of doing, once you've thought about this, is I've got to make my code not write always to column B, but figure out which column I should be writing to. So write to column B and then write to column C, then to column D each time I choose another one. Or I could say this, you know what? I'm always going to write to column B. But if I'm always going to write to column B, what should I do just before I start writing to column B? I insert a column at column B. So let's do that. So let's do that just before we bring in right here. So we found the county here. Here we're getting ready to bring in the state. Bring in the county and state. Right here, let's just go ahead and insert. So columns 2. And unfortunately, you cannot put a letter for the column here. You can only put a number. Columns 2 dot insert. And again, if you weren't quite sure how to do that, record yourself doing it. And it would insert and it would tell you to shift stuff to the right. It would come up with a parameter, shift to the right. How else are you going to shift it if you're inserting the whole column? You can't shift it down, putting the whole column in. So that should work just fine. So now I think, oops, I didn't mean B. I meant C. Did I? Oh, no, that's right. It did. It's just wide. So why did it make that column so wide? Yeah, it's when you insert a column, it says we got to make some width for this column. My best guess, it's the width of the column to the left is what it's going to copy. So let's do this right after. I think that's okay. Right after we put all these numbers in, let's go ahead and do an auto fit. So we've got columns. Let's go ahead, another way to get to that whole column. So here's just a different way to get to the whole column. So I'm going to do a particular range, B1, whoops, square brackets. Right, that's just a way to refer to that. Oh, but I want to do it on a particular sheet. So this is on my compare sheet. So compare dot B1 dot auto fit. And that should be the same as just doing that. So now, auto fit method of range. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm not quite there. You can't auto fit. This is a reference to one cell. You can't auto fit a cell. You have to auto fit a column or a row. But from this cell, there's a method that lets me get to the whole column. It's called entire column. The entire column method says there's some range over here before I'm calling entire column. And whatever range that is, I want the whole column that corresponds to that range. So if I only have one cell selected, it'll be a single column range. If I've got 3, if this identifies 3 cells, it's a range, it's a multi-cell range, it'll be the whole column of all 3 of those cells. So that should do the trick. So now I should be able to pull in, let's go find Utah County, QRSTUV, or Utah County, loop. And that brings in Utah County. It looks like it's popping that over because it is making that cell large before it makes it small. Wayne County. Is it happening so fast? Can you see it go wide and then pop back in? I can't even see it happen, but it's definitely going wide before it comes back. Questions?
If you're not worried about auto fitting, you have to just declare insert a new row at a specific width?
Oh, can you insert it at a specific width? So that's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that. My guess is the answer is no, but I could set it to a specific width right after I inserted it. Yeah, it would be nice for a column if I could just tell it, hey, insert this column. And by the way, make it this size so that it doesn't kind of push things off and then bring them back. Yeah.
So you could say, make it like equal time.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. So here I'm gonna get rid of auto fit, and we could make it. I think I'll probably end up bringing it back, but let's make it to the size of the column next to it. Whew, I don't know how to do that. Fortunately, we can figure that out. So columns 1 dot width, columns 2 dot, I think it's column width. So yeah, so I think I can say, I don't think you can set, is the column width, the column width might be read write. Let me just see if I can change that to like 10. Yeah. So I could say, compare B1 dot column width equals C1's column width. So you could just tell it to be, you could hard code it to a particular width like we did here, or you can tell it to read the column width of a different column and plug that in. So now we're not auto fitting, but it should do a pretty good job. I like auto fitting better because if I've got a longer name, it's going to get chopped off here, but auto fit would display it. So I'll leave that example there, but I'll go back to auto fit. Questions? Yes. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because it's just, when we insert that, it's bringing over the data validation. I don't know how to take data validation off, but fortunately I know how to record a macro. So I'm on there, I'm going to come to data, I'm going to come to data validation. I'm going to say any value. I'll stop recording. Looks like data validation.delete. So validation, so range validation.delete. So we'll auto fit it. And that's going to be in B1, be the place that it happens. So I should be able to do that to get rid of that data validation. Let's give it a shot. Did the whole state of Virginia. Yeah. All right. That's a pretty good example. It's now a pretty workable worksheet to be able to pull up the data from multiple columns or multiple counties and look at them side by side. When we get to dealing with charts, we're going to pick up here and we'll automatically build charts off of the data that we're showing here. Okay, thanks for coming. Class dismissed. Thank you. What a lovely class. What a lovely class.